a man we're about to bring on, knows the SEC and knows how to rile up the fan bases around the SEC maybe better than most.
That's right. We'll bring in SEC guru Michael Bratton, and this right here, we've got the Lakeway area covered, baby. We got Jeff County top left, top right we got Morristown East, and now at the bottom we got Morristown West. So I mean, if you want to talk about the Lakeway area, the Citizen Tribune's top decade teams, we got you covered. But we're talking Tennessee football, and Mike, we appreciate you jumping on with us. And you had both Kane and I on down at SEC Media Days, and you kind of get to talk to so many people, going the route you go. What was your overall takeaway from, those 4 long days in Nashville?
Yeah, it's something you boys probably would not even realize. Well, first of all, I appreciate being on the show. I listened to for years and years. You guys really are the go-to source for Tennessee football, so it's an honor to be here. But to answer your question, I mean, there's so much going on. I'm basically spending all this week trying to see what I missed because there's so much information. There's so many quotes, so many videos. But the thing that stood out to me the most, and I guess I should have anticipated this, but it kind of blew my mind, the presence of Texas and Oklahoma at this event. Because I'd run into some of these guys last year, but this year, just anything Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M related we put out over at that SEC podcast. I mean, these Texas people, these Oklahoma people, they cannot get enough of it. They are ready for life in the fans are ready. I don't think the teams and the coaches are ready for the SEC, but the fan bases are ready. And I know we got a season to go. This is going to be one heck of a season, but it's hard not to look ahead to 2024 when Texas and Oklahoma join the league, because as great as the SEC is, and I'm the biggest SEC homer in the world, it's going to get even better in 2024. That's kind of the biggest takeaway I had.
Yeah, it just means more, right? I mean, you add 2 more to the conference, 16, and it's just going to get a whole lot better, especially if football is concerned. And Mike, I want to kind of channel it in more towards a Tennessee perspective. Again, you talk to coaches, you talk to other media personnel, you talk to players. What's kind of the vibe about Tennessee this season that you got from speaking to the likes of other SEC people?
Confidence. I think that this, for the first time, people genuinely believe Tennessee is back and Tennessee can sustain this because, the offense, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but it is for real. It's everywhere Heupel's been. The last 7 quarterbacks, something he's had, have all put up insane numbers, and Joe Milton will likely just be the next on the line, and we're looking ahead to Nico, and the future very, very bright at Tennessee. And the fact that I apologize, I think I said the same thing to both of y'all, but it just struck me so much. We're sitting there talking Alabama, Georgia, which one most likely to be a win for the Vols this season. The last decade, if I asked you that, you guys would have laughed and then got off and left the table because it's not even worth entertaining. But here we are discussing it, and that's not to say Tennessee's going to go undefeated and kill everybody, but they certainly exceeded expectations last year. I didn't have them winning 11 games. I thought they'd win maybe 9 if things broke right, and they exceeded that. So if I'm sitting here thinking they could only go second in the East, I think they can exceed even those expectations, and they can win the East. They do host Georgia, and Georgia, hey, at this time last year, we were all saying nobody can beat Bama. They got Bryce Young, Will Anderson, multiple teams beat Alabama. So that goes to show what we know in the offseason. So I think the fact that Tennessee enters the season with realistic chances, they're not the favorite, obviously, but chances to win the East, to potentially win the SEC, I think that has to be said.
Are you shocked at how much, because I was going to say, I think it works to your point, I think it works to Tennessee's advantage that, they're not picked to be the media darling. They're not, there's so much other chatter out there about other teams. But are you shocked at how Kirby Smart continually gets his guys to buy into this disrespect? I mean, like the people talking like after nobody said last year, what? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, yeah, people picked Alabama, but at the same time, nobody thought Georgia was just going to fall off. They thought they were a playoff team, but didn't have enough to go back-to-back. All of a sudden, they go back-to-back and do it in convincing style.
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised because he learned from the master. I mean, no one but Nick Saban has been able to keep a sustained run like this, and that doesn't mean Georgia's going to get there. I think, it's cliche to say, but getting to the mountaintop is a lot easier than staying up there, but Georgia has done it, obviously, 2 years in a row, and they should be the favorites to do it for a third. I just don't think it's going to happen, but just because of how difficult that really is. But, to your point, I mean, obviously some tragedies down there. They're not rooting for that, but the narratives and the discussions and the media down there turning against them, I can't tell. I mean, I don't want to go off the record here, but many people we spoke to down there say, yeah, we'll talk to you, but just don't ask us about AJC. So, I mean, they are even influencing the media down there, I think, to where there's topics they cannot discuss. So it's wild to see all that, but hey, that's the power Kirby's got in that state. He's the king of college football, and I think he's running that state just like Nick Saban runs Alabama.
So how does Tennessee get past them? Like, they're picked second. How do they go a notch above and get to the top spot in the East, in your estimation?
I mean, I think they have to get stronger on the line of scrimmage, and that was evident when they met up with Georgia last fall, and that was with Tennessee's offensive line significantly better than I thought it would be. So is it realistic that they can be even better this year? I don't know. But I certainly know Georgia doesn't have Jalen Carter anymore, and he's a game wrecker. And I've had people tell me, I mean, he's the difference when they played Tennessee. He was the difference when they played Alabama and Ohio State. I mean, when that guy, certain plays, he's just unblockable. And I don't think Georgia has another guy like that. So I think that is something that not enough people are looking at. Darnell Washington, he was such a freak, not statistically, but he was essentially a third offensive tackle on the field at all times. And, he can jump over a linebacker if they needed him to. I mean, they don't have another guy like that. They got Brock Bowers, who is probably the best player in all of the SEC, if not the country, but he's different, obviously, than Darnell Washington. So there are pieces that Georgia is missing this year, reasons to doubt them, but I'm not crazy enough. I say a lot of crazy things. I'm not crazy enough to not pick Georgia to win the East, but Tennessee's got to get better, deeper on the defensive side of the ball, and I think Heupel and company have attacked that the last two recruiting cycles, and they're certainly doing it now. I think that's the key to catching up with Georgia, because I don't think Heupel, his Tennessee teams, I don't think they'll ever have an elite defense, but they don't need them to be because they score so often. They need a defense that can get to the quarterback, force turnovers, and with these pieces they're adding, I think they're getting much, much closer to that.
Chatting with Michael Bratton. He's the host of That SEC podcast, along with cousin Shane. You can find him on Twitter at SEC Mike. And Mike, so you mean to tell me you are not one of the 8 individuals who voted Vanderbilt to win the East?
I am not. No. and what that says to me, Kane, is just, I mean, I don't want to call out any of our contemporaries or anything, but there's a lot of old people at media days, and it's all electronic voting, and I think they screwed up their ballot, because that's the only thing. I think they meant to vote Vanderbilt 8th, and they did them first, because either that or they're just trolling, and it's to my knowledge it's all anonymous, so I don't understand the trolling aspect of it either. So I think when I saw that, it's the media poll is what it is, but it's not worth getting upset over.
So we're talking about Georgia. You've mentioned Alabama, of course. Let's take those two games off the table, because we know how important those games are for Tennessee. Georgia in the East, and Alabama, still Alabama. It is an SEC game, but a lot of other games on that schedule for Tennessee that are so important. You asked both of us this question. You got Florida in week 3 on the road, A&M at home, South Carolina, Kentucky on the road. What game does Tennessee really need to not watch out for, because you're watching out for all these games, but which one of those games are going to be the biggest competition for Tennessee if it needs to get to where it needs to go to get to 9 to 10 wins?
Well, my answer is going to be very illogical. I don't really have many reasons for saying this, but it's that game in the swamp, the Florida Gators, because I think Florida could be truly awful this year.
Yeah.
Yet they've been truly awful before, and they've beaten Tennessee, particularly in the swamp. Now, I realize that's got nothing to do with this game, and these players got that off their back last year beating Florida, but even that one, as dominant as they looked in times, they nearly gave that one away. So I think to get the ball rolling, kind of like last year, that Pitt game. I mean, Tennessee was worlds better than Pitt. But again, it went in overtime. They were significantly better than Florida. But again, that was a game that, fair or not, you could say really went down to a final pass attempt that as soon as Anthony Richardson threw it, I just knew the Gators were going to come up with it in the end zone. But of course, that's not how it ended. I think going down there, building momentum, getting the thing going, because it would just be the most Tennessee thing ever to go down there with all this hype, be a 2-touchdown favorite, and find a way to lose that football game. Now, to Josh Heupel's credit, I mean, I think this is a new Tennessee. I don't think we're going to be having these same hiccups, and I think that is paramount for them to get a win down there. Because here's how I always look at SEC football. So Heupel got there before Napier, right? So they're clearly ahead of where Napier is as a program. This is Napier's opportunity to close that gap and maybe even pass Tennessee in the East standings. Now, again, I think that's a stretch because I got Florida 6th in the East. I got Tennessee 2nd. To me, there is a gap. But it doesn't matter what I say. What matters is what happens on the field. And we already got Joe Milton saying, hey, I don't lose in Florida. I wish he did not say that because I feel like that could come back to haunt the Tennessee Vols early in the season. But to get the momentum, I mean, to beat an A&M, to beat a Kentucky on the road, Alabama on the road, Georgia in Knoxville, I don't see how realistic that is if they're losing to teams like Florida. So to me, that is a critical game to just showing that last year was not a fluke, which I don't think it is, but they have to prove that on the field to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking to try to win in Gainesville and Tuscaloosa for the first time since 2003. I mean, it's been 20 years for both. And so, you know, that Florida game is pivotal because if you win that one, everybody can talk about UTSA being a trap game and all that stuff, whatever. You know, they're a good team. Tennessee, it's not like they're going to sit there and go, oh, you know, it's going to be 55-0 and we're going to roll over them. They'll approach them the same way. Then you got South Carolina. Everybody's got them beating the Gamecocks. And then you have the bye week heading into that A&M game. And A&M to me is a great unknown, Michael, because of just, you know, everything surrounding that program and all the chatter.
Yeah, and I honestly, right now, again, take my opinion for what it's worth. I'm accurate about as often as I'm wrong, but I would lean A&M to win that game, even though it is in Neyland Stadium, and it's because of the line of scrimmage. I think A&M is going to be one of the better teams, maybe the best in the SEC, if not the country, on the defensive line, bringing back everybody on the offensive line as well. But that offensive line was not very good last year, so that could be a benefit. It could be a negative for them Aggies. So I just think A&M is going to be a very, very difficult team. I've got A&M higher than Alabama on my West ballot. Now, could you talk me into A&M being a train wreck and Bobby Petrino, he may not even be with the program by the time that Tennessee game rolls around, and maybe Tennessee kills A&M. You could talk me into that as well. But I just think with their backs against the wall, I've said it many times, if Jimbo does not go 8-4, and that's kind of sad that I'm sitting here saying in year 6 we got to go 8-4, you got to fire him. You got to get someone qualified to go in there. I think they're a 9-10 win team this year, so that Texas A&M game that may be a more difficult game than Alabama, believe it or not.
You got the $56 million to fire him?
What's more than that?
Yeah, I think it's around 70, but they'll come up with it real quick. Trust me, if they suck again and Texas wins the Big 12, they'll have that money in a heartbeat.
Isn't it 84 right now, and it'll go down to 70-something after this season? I mean, it's something stupid.
I thought it goes down to 56 after this season, but I could be wrong. Regardless, it's stupid either way. It's a whole lot of money. So, like, if you want him gone, what's the use of waiting another year to get it down 13 or 14 million?
There you go. But that's my thing.
Yeah.
If you feel like that's the move you have to make, what are you doing? Like, what's the difference between 70 million and 84 million? Like, that's just a stupid amount of money, regardless. So, like,
maybe he's broken a rule, and Texas A&M can invite the NCAA down there to get rid of the buyout. I mean, that would be my move.
Can pay for that investigation as well. Hey, we're kind of going down this schedule here, and we'll be with you here for a couple more minutes. Don't want to keep you all day, but you mentioned the A&M game. Going to give you an opportunity to come around with another big-time toss-up game on the road at Kentucky. I think Kentucky's going to be a whole lot better, significantly better at the quarterback position. What do you like about the Wildcats at home later in the season against Tennessee?
Yeah, that's another team that I love. I got them third in the East this year, the Kentucky Wildcats. I think they're in for a big bounce back year. I truly, I don't have respect. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think Mark Stoops is overrated as a coach. I've been very clear on this. He's a C plus head coach, but he's got a great defensive coordinator in Brad White, although he has no clue how to solve Heupel's offense, but that's not unique to to Brad White. Bringing back Liam Cohen, I think that's critical to Kentucky. 2 years ago, he was the offensive coordinator when they won 10 games, but I think you hit on the most important aspect there, potentially. Devin Leary, the transfer quarterback from NC State, I think he's a lot better player than Will Levis, and I was a guy at Media Days causing a stir a year ago when I said Will Levis, not a first-round pick. I mean, hell, some people were saying first overall pick. I said that guy should never make another projection like that again. And it turned out, I was right on that one. But, yeah, to me, the critical thing for Kentucky is that offensive line, because that was a train wreck last year. That was kind of the DNA of Mark Stoops' program, was the offensive line, and it's kind of the inverse now. Now they have receivers. They got a quarterback. They've got a really good running back, Ray Davis from Vanderbilt, who was one of the most underrated players in the SEC last year. And that, again, go back to the defensive coordinator. I don't know that they have a lot of high-end elite players aside from one or two on that defensive side of the ball, but they're always stingy. So I think their defense is going to be really underrated. I think 9 wins is a realistic possibility for Kentucky. And I think that game means more to Kentucky than it does to Tennessee, certainly. So that's their Super Bowl right there. That's one you really got to keep your eye on. Tennessee always beats Kentucky, so I do lean Tennessee, but it is not going to be easy.
If Joe Milton is who all the fans and the staff hopes he is this year, where do you see Tennessee setting at the end of the year? Where do you see them, going bowling, all that?
Probably 10-2 is right where I'd put it, with probably losses to Georgia and either Alabama or A&M. I think those are the 3 most likely losses on the schedule. But again, if he's even better, I mean, I'm still in the wait and see mode with Joe Milton. I'm trying not to buy into the hype because I've seen enough of them, and I always believe you kind of are who you are after we've seen you for multiple seasons. But at the same time, I got to give Josh Heupel and that offensive system the benefit of the doubt. So I'm kind of right in the middle there. So I think that's a realistic possibility. 10-2 once again, another New Year's Six bowl game, and I think if Josh Heupel was being honest, I mean, I don't think that's the standard by any means, but I think they would take that with the possibility for the 2024 to be a really special season on Rocky Top.
His name is Michael Bratton. He is the co-host of that SEC podcast, does an awesome job. Find him on Twitter at SEC Mike. He is a native of the Lakeway area, as Austin pointed out at the top of the show, so he's a good guy. Michael, appreciate the time, man. Tell us all where we can find your work and how often you do your podcast and all that when we're not listening to the Volquest podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that SEC podcast, available on all podcasting platforms, highest rated SEC show on Apple and Spotify. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I think we even got a TikTok. I don't have much to do with that stuff, but
what about
we're on
Threads?
all of them. No, we refuse. We're not going down that road. We're not doing it anymore. We've hit the limit with TikTok. Trust me.
Good stuff, man. Really appreciate the time, and let's do this again soon. All right.
Anytime.